The figures are relatively small, 1 million out of 500 million. But, you know, we know that there are voices, we hear them all the time, of what a problem this is. Where do you think that comes from? I mean, is there this crisis of governance, this crisis of solidarity, this lack of community feeling or common feeling, has grown out of something, right? Is the basis a long-term worry about migration and bringing together of that? Lena mentioned the a possible association with the economic problems that the continent has been experiencing. How do you, the next step of the explanation, where do you take it to?
Well, in my opinion, with the migration issues and the refugee issues, since a too long time, we're using the wrong words. We are exaggerating some problems, or we are making some associations between migrants and threat or a danger for our way of life, for our style of life. In the most of the cases, 99%, migrants are not dangerous, are not a problem, are just an opportunity for the economic system of Europe, also for the demography of our continent. We do need migrants. We do need also to have a different approach to the countries of origin and countries of transit, because if we categorize foreigners as problems, then we will ask to other countries to cooperate with us in many fields, not only on problems of borders or controls of flows, but also for every kind of international cooperation. They will tell us, you treated our citizens as enemies, as second-class persons. So the cooperation, the approach will be different. Think about the natural good relation that we should have with Latin America. Maybe this is my Italian origin that drives me to tell it. Latin American countries has generally a positive approach towards Europe. In many Latin American countries, they feel like all the Europeans. Take the Argentinians, for instance, so also the Brazilians for many aspects. Now, since some years, Latin American countries see Europe as a competitor, sometimes also as an enemy, because we keep on treating migrants as problems, as not fully citizens. So I think this is also a problem on the way we behave in the international arena. We do need cooperation from other regions, not only on migration, many other aspects. And we are showing our worst face, in my opinion, toward migrants. It's just an opinion, of course. It's not the truth.
Good to have opinions. Rolf, I want to go back to the point that Marcello made right at the beginning when he was speaking, which is this question of the absence of solidarity, a kind of a failure of solidarity. How much do you think we should be expecting that solidarity, either as between people and citizens and the refugees, or solidarity between the governments? How much realistically should we be expecting by way of solidarity in international politics?
Well, history is, I'm old enough to think in historical terms. That is the Cold War. It defined relations in economic, in political, ideological terms. When the breakdown of the Cold War came, suddenly something new. We had to find our identities through our language, our ethnicity, our something completely new, where the individual became much more important. And that's, of course, why I'm taking that up, because as High Commission on National Minorities, that broke up completely the societies. And also I even older experience from Iraq, and we already mentioned that. Iraq was one must say, a dictatorship, very tough, reckless leadership, but it was a society where the different religious and the ethnicities were respected. It was the same with Syria, as a matter of fact, and to some degree also Libya. When these broke up, the ethnic differences started to break up, and majority-minority issues became furious. In Europe, of course, we had a similar. Yugoslavia was something close to our heart, the Estonia, Latvia, where, of course, I worked in all these areas with the Russian minority. As High Commissioner, I was High Commissioner on, not for, observed it very carefully when that was drafted. So it was a matter of address the problems, but not necessarily support. But what you created suddenly, a sense in Northern Africa, obviously, Arab world, of terrible breakup of the Iraqi military, which was a disciplined military. I don't like them, but they were quite professional. Break up the political party, which was open for all ethnicities, all religious characters. Broke down the whole society, and we got this terrible hatred and developments, which that were refugees were created out of that. Syria followed, was also ruled by a so-called Ba'ath party, which was reasonably fair to the different parties. Libya is another case. They had a dictator, but also there. So I don't dream of dictators coming back, certainly not. But we must be aware when that happened, this construction, not the political, ideological, communism against the democracy and so on, something totally different happened. And we were not prepared, we were helpless. But I think it's very important. I'd like to come back to what your experience from Medborgarplatsen, the experience where also the former Prime Minister said, let us open our heart. I think this is something we should keep, because I have a sense that it is a panic now. I think it is certainly, I'm so frightened when I hear your figures, but still this is a temporary element there that will be cooled down. And we have to be very careful before we start to treat. We should be prepared that the whole thing cools down. But also that demands something else. I have 1,000 things to say, so stop me. But what I think was, and that's very Swedish, our dream in Sweden when we worked out from my young years, development assistance. We should work to help other countries. We should use the wealth we had developed in happy years to share that with African states and with states in other regions in order to allow them to develop in their own countries, not force them to flee. But I think it is Europe has been too sloppy, not followed up these fundamental ideas of the best way to stop refugees is to make them happy where they are. Now, of course, now it is, as I said, the first problem is the ethnic hatred and the religious hatred. I recognize that. But we should, the undercurrent is that we should really, Europe, UN, we should work together to start to expand and develop serious policies and strategies for supporting economic and social developments in these countries.